explore how as researchers, do we exchange data among ourselves? So the discussion will mainly focus on the exchange of data among ourselves. How can we advance that? So we'll also provide the prompts and the expected outcome. The talent one focuses on scaling and retaining AI talent through research ecosystem. Again, how can we retain the talent that we are training in Africa or in Global South countries? So that will be the discussion in that breakout 3. In terms of compute, how we have talked about compute being expensive. So what are some of the infrastructure or investment that can enable us to use the available infrastructure we have in our region to build our AI tools? So that will be the discussion in that breakout 4. Then research in innovation. How can we use our hubs to drive innovation? I like what Dr. I'll mention her name. Give me a moment. Nakusa mentioned, from Makerere mentioned that innovation should just not end at the university, but we should scale it and use it in our ecosystem. So this is the discussion, looking at pathways where it's not only producing papers, but also producing AI innovation that can work in our communities. And lastly, which are some of the AI use cases we should prioritize, and how can we work together to ensure that they scale or they can be replicated from one country to another. So these are the 6 frameworks that we are working on, and we will have 6 breakouts groups where we will have the lead, and the role of the lead will to introduce the themes that have been listed in this document, and the focus question, and to guide the conversation. So they will manage time and also ensure at the very end we will have a session where we report back what we have learned from our group. So that will be the role of the breakout lead. The note takers, they will work together with the lead to ensure that they capture insights, organize output at the very end, because this will be presented at the very end. So this is the structure of the breakout session. We'll have the opening session where the lead will introduce these questions and the theme of each framework. Then the discussion will run for at least 30 minutes. Then we synthesize the idea. Then we will validate before we come back now to report. I think that's okay. In every table, we have documents that will guide the discussion in that table. So depending on the framework that you'd like to, the breakout session that you'd like to attend, please, you can move and see the documents that are there. Then we'll have the leads who will guide the discussion. I hope that is in order. And now you are allowed to break and join the breakout session that is of interest to you. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I will ask all the leads maybe to stand if I mention your name. The AI and data governance model will be led by Yosra. Yosra, she's there. And Doreen, where are you standing? You'll be in this. Okay, she will be there as well. So data sharing framework will be led by Eddie Cargo. There is Eddie. Eddie, raise your hand. Yeah, there is Eddie, if you plan to join that session. And the note taker will be Fred Mucha. He's there. Okay. So AI talent coordination, we have Tolo Lupe. Tololupe, maybe you can move to another desk. So there he is. He will be leading that breakout session. And the note taker will be Joshua Baru, behind there. Under compute and infrastructure, we have Raymond from Horace Lab. Is he here? Okay, or they will be working closely with Joseph. Joseph is right behind there. So which table are you? Joseph, which table? Which table? You need to be located where the discussion will be. Where are you located? This one? Okay. Then we have research and infrastructure, research and innovation pathway. Hilda is here? Yeah, Hilda. They will be together with Wamicha. I think they'll be on that table. Okay. Then use cases, driven AI ecosystem, we have Dr. Mwigusa. I think he's here. We will be together with Dr. Mwigusa, I think, on that table, the second table. Okay. Are we good? I know it, yeah. So if we can't fit on one table, for data governance, we will have, but first of all, if we can organize ourselves, we see that is table 1 for AI data governance. If we have, do we plan to have a breakout session B? Oh. Yeah. Doreen, do you plan to have B? Just one? Okay. Data sharing, Fred, do you plan to have 2? Okay. Let's first rearrange ourselves and see. Chen, I think you'll be here. Hello. Hello, everyone. Each group, we shall prepare to present our findings. The presenter will be given 5 minutes just to present the outcome of your discussion. So as we prepare for that, as we wrap up, we should prepare for that as well. Okay. Doreen and your team, are you ready to present AI and data governance model? Go to the next one, data sharing. Fred, are you ready to present? We are ready. Okay, we should wrap up. We should listen to the outcome of this discussion, and we'll start with the AI and data governance team. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me? All right, perfect. All right, hi, everyone. My name is Botelo Baloy, and I am the CEO and founder of Umco AI. I have a small voice, so even if the mic is working, you might not be able to hear me. I'm joking. All right, so I'll repeat. My name is Botelo Baloy. I am the CEO and founder of Umco AI. I'm 22 years old, and I'm originally from South Africa. So Umco AI is essentially the world's first offline national AI ecosystem. It's AI reimagined through the lens of governance and citizens and private sector. So we create AI solutions for the people, the private sector, and the government of South Africa, all 100% offline, without needing to connect to Wi-Fi, data, or internet. So we're solving the big problem in a lot of barriers that Africans have to artificial intelligence, being power, internet connectivity, data, and at the same time, language. So our chatbot is able to understand all 12 official South African languages, all offline. So, thank you, I'm short. So we were a part of the group that was discussing AI and governance. And one of the biggest question that we were really answering is, hold on, let me go go back here. All right. Apologies, is how can African and the global majority countries design AI governance systems that are both protective and enabling? Participants agreed that AI governance in global majority contexts must move beyond copying external regulatory models and instead adapt to context-responsive and development-oriented and rights-preserving governance systems that account for infrastructural limitations, political economies, and socio-cultural realities. This requires frameworks that balance innovation, enablement with safeguards, strengthen data sovereignty and strategic autonomy, promote community participation and inclusive oversight, support phased and adaptive regulatory implementation, and encourage regional coordination and interoperability. Governance systems must be designed as living ecosystems rather than rigid legal structures, allowing gradual capacity building and institutional learning. So another key thing that we discussed was the core problem that government organizations face is fragmented government data. Government data is currently scattered across ministries, sectors, different departments, healthcare, agriculture, education, social services, and this fragmentation creates two major issues. Inefficiency in policymaking and service delivery, extreme difficulty in data sharing, even when there is shared national interest, right? So as a result, governments struggle to produce coherent, data-driven national strategies. So we also discussed having a centralized system where we have a portal that allows government organizations to share data securely, access harmonized data sets, and reduce duplication and silos. So AI can be used to query, analyze data across systems, eliminating the need for officials to manually sift through millions of records, right? So it's important that this does not remain unrestricted, but controlled, role-based access aligned with national ICT policy. So we also need to have data sharing protocols and confidentiality to address sensitive and mistrust. Data sharing must be governed by clear integrity. It must define clearly what data can be shared, with whom, for what purpose, and under what security conditions. Highly sensitive data must remain protected, while non-sensitive or anonymized data can be harmonized for national planning and research. Something that we noticed is that there's a lot of mistrust between government organizations and AI companies. I mean, we are expecting them to, give us a lot of sensitive data, and so the mistrust is very valid and must be addressed structurally. So for us, I'm not going to self-promote, but we encourage AI systems that operate 100% offline and they remain localized to the region, right? So data remains physically within the government's headquarters. Data is restricted to a defined geographic radius, so about 50 kilometers outside of that headquarters, you cannot access the data. No foreign access points, and end-to-end cyber encryption. So essentially, if a data breach occurs, there also has to be clear accountability mechanisms, right? So as AI companies, we have different regulatory offices that we must comply with. In South Africa, we have POPIA, and one of the main things that we have to do with POPIA is we have to have someone within our company that's responsible for any data leakages. If we are no longer compliant with POPIA, this is the person that must answer to the judge. So it's important that AI companies remain compliant and appoint information regulatory officers that work with governments to ensure that the data remains protected. There has to be alignment with relevant regulatory or information protection authorities. And another thing that we discussed was the issue of data ownership and infrastructure ownership. A lot of times you have government departments who, they don't necessarily collect the data. They don't necessarily own the data. And so this creates an issue where, government organizations now rely on third parties, and it, again, leaves us incredibly, incredibly vulnerable. So we need to ensure that governments have ownership of AI systems. And I like to say that AI creates a blank page for us. You know, we can now build AI systems where we can store and host data on those systems, and we have the capacity to own these systems, right? So we have to have ownership or sovereign control over data, but also we have to have ownership of data centers. That was also another big point in our discussion, and ensuring that if we decide, if we want to go cloud-based, if we want to do edge computing and go fully offline, we have ownership over these AI systems where data is being stored or where data is being hosted. So the ownership must remain with the government, even if we as the companies, provide the system. So another thing that we also discussed a lot, guys, but was making ICT policy actionable. Sometimes you'll read an ICT policy document and you're like, I don't know what I just read, I don't know what the metrics are, I don't know what the deadlines are, where's the execution? Right? How are we actually going to execute this as a nation and ensure that we are moving forward in terms of our technology? So we need to translate policy into clear, implementable language, provide officials with practical tools to understand security risk, infrastructure trade-offs, and operational responsibility. So policies should clearly define which government departments are responsible. They should define KPIs and success metrics, right? And deadlines and due dates. If the Department of Energy and the Department of Health need to work together on some part of the ICT policy, they need to be roles defined and how they can actually do that, right? So this includes milestones and timelines and accountability at each stage of implementation. We are no longer just writing policy, but we are also ensuring that there's some sort of execution after that policy is implemented. So we also need to realize that governments host data embassies, which act as a strong mechanism for national critical data. These embassies also need to be secure, and they have to have the ability to operate offline, or if we are going to be cloud-based, we're working with third parties that we trust and are sure are compliant with our information regulatory offices in our countries. Another thing was just digital forensic and incident response, right? So if there is a data leakage, I mean, right now in South Africa, it's a statistic that scares me, but motivates me as a founder. Almost 1,400 government organizations in South Africa get hacked every week. 1,400, guys. And that is because of over-reliance on foreign systems, leaving ourselves open to, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to have local AI models or local tech solutions, because when we see how compromised we are when we invest into foreign technology, it's also important that we discuss this with government officials and we let them know, hey, are you aware that this is the metrics that you're working with when you rely on foreign systems? Are you aware that you are more prone to scams? I mean, the South African Revenue Service right now, if let's say they have a data leakage and someone gets access to your email, they get an access to your email and they say, hey, you owe us 5,000 rands, but you're not paying SARS, you're not paying our tax system. You're paying someone else who has access to your email, and SARS is still like, you owe us 5,000 rand, so I don't know. And SARS themselves is also losing money. So this is why digital forensics and incident response is important, because digital forensics is able to actually track where data leakage occurs. It can then create an analysis and a diagnosis and a solution on how we can actually fix the leakage. So this requires coordination with information regulatory offices, layered security systems, internal investigation, and also ensuring that we have clear response protocols and stress testing as well. So we need to be researching more on these scams and threat models, and ensuring that our governments are secure. So I'll kind of, I'm not sure how much time I still have, but I'll go into some of the things that we discussed towards the end was basically supporting phased implementation and real-world adoption. So the participants of our group basically proposed a staged government rollout model, right, where there is phase one, which is foundation, awareness, and literary campaigns, so ensuring that government organizations understand the policies, institutional mapping and stakeholder coordination, baseline regulatory guidance and ethical compliance standards. And phase two would focus more on capacity and infrastructure development, investing in digital and compute infrastructure, making sure we own the data centers, making sure we own the data, and if we don't, investing into tools that can ensure that we are still safe when something happens. Training and workforce development, the establishment of compliance and oversight, and then phase three was scaling and regional integration. So making sure that there's cross-border regulatory cooperation, shared compliance frameworks, and the interoperability standards. Sorry guys, that is a hard word. So it's all about joint research and language model development and sector-specific AI deployment. So participants particularly emphasize the importance of developing African language and culturally contextual AI models, right, across priority sectors including health, agriculture, finance, education, and logistics. I mean, our government officials are also a huge part of our country. They are, for us, they are South Africans. They share our culture, they share our language. So the systems that they interact with should also reflect that as well. They should reflect the soul of the nation that they work for. And then we also discuss sustainable infrastructure investment, political will and institution coordination, and trust building across public, private, and community actors, alignment between donor priorities and national development agendas, and continuous monitoring, evaluation, and adaptive governance learning. So I'll kind of end with saying that a lot of people like to talk about AI for governance, but we rarely talk about AI for government. We go to government and say, fund our AI initiatives, but who is going to the government and creating AI solutions that help them in their industries? When you create AI solutions at UMCO AI, we ask the question, what if the president had an AI? Right? What if the Department of Education had an AI? How can we bridge the gap between, national developmental concerns in health, agriculture, education, and ensure that government departments have the tools that they need in the new race to AI to fix these issues? And how can AI be a part of that? I want President Cyril Ramaphosa to stand in front of, Donald Trump and say, hey, I have my own AI in South Africa. And it can tell me, whether or not the department can build a road or a school. Where should we build a road or a school? It can evaluate tenders, evaluate budgets, and ensure that, okay, now I have a strategy for where you should build a road or a school. These are the things that AI can also be used for. AI also has a place in government, so much as it has a place in policy creation. And I'm going to end with, something that Utata Nelson Mandela used to say, Amandla Awetu, the power is within us. And AI creates an opportunity for the next digital transition. And when African governments have offline AI systems that no other foreign entities can access, that is when power is ours. That is when we have our Amandla Awetu. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I think we'll go to group 2 that focuses on data sharing.
Hi, everyone. Hi, guys. Hi. So we were looking at data sharing and how to ensure that researchers and governments cross-border can share data responsibly. And we started with looking at the key challenges in data sharing and governance. My name is Eddie Kago, and I am the founder of a credit scoring company for agriculture, which uses satellite data called Antugro. So, and our team was represented by folks from government who were in charge of data sharing, one from Cameroon, another one from India, and we had 2 ladies from Nigeria, the Nigeria Data Science Network, and we had 3 other gentlemen from East Africa who are practitioners as well. And so, and myself, as I mentioned. So we looked at the challenges, and the biggest ones were on data sovereignty, privacy and sensitivity, where data privacy and sovereignty concerns were expressed in terms of you want to give someone access to your data, but then you don't want them to carry it or port it. So how do you counter that? And then the other one was some data is sensitive also. Okay, so that one you covered, and then, then how do you answer control and jurisdiction on data? The second one was on mistrust and trust deficit. So mistrust or trust deficit between researchers and governments. So how are you guaranteed that their systems are secure and that your data will also be responsibly utilized? So we asked how can we facilitate more data sharing in low trust environments. So the global majority and the global south countries are low trust societies. So how do we ensure that data is safely shared in terms of quality data? And then the other third one that we looked at was on data fragmentation, and this is in different formats. So some countries have their data in paper format. Other countries have their data in older formats, which are not compatible with current formats, especially if you're talking about current systems. So then how do you ensure that you have proper policies that support scale when sharing the data? So we went on to look at how now the problem looks like, which is data exists, but trust, access, infrastructure, policy alignment, and responsible governance limits its sharing, stability, and value. So we went on to look at the solution, which is how such a framework would look like. And we'll go on to how a proper data sharing framework would look like. So where you'd have proper incentives. So we focus strongly on incentives design. So how do you ensure that all parties are well aligned on what they are gaining out of the data sharing? So sharing is 2 ways. So the person sharing, and there is a sharer, and there's a beneficiary. So how do you ensure that people don't abuse the relationship? So we looked at the community, the data owner, and the person now who is consuming the data. So the purpose is to ensure that mutual benefit and sustained participation. And then the second one we looked at was on standards and classification protocols. And so standards of sharing will be important to, and also categorizing different data sets. So not all data is equal. So, and then we looked at trusted governance and institutional hosting. So where you could have a trusted data intermediary that is a neutral entity which has been entrusted the holding of the data, and other parties can now talk to it. We also explored having regional research networks, which ensure that data is shared across different governments and jurisdictions. And so we also looked at the core design. So then how did it look like in terms of the design of such a framework? And so how governments can collaborate without risking strategic data leakage. So the first one was controlled depth of data access. So we have to define the depth of information the governments are willing to share, and also enable access that ensures that your strategic information is safe, and then user verification. You need to verify the user correctly, have strong authentication. And now the opposite, the counter to incentives is penalties. So there should be strong penalties for irresponsible data access and data use. And then the other main one was on privacy enhancement and security techniques. So these are different mechanisms which you can use, including encryption of data in transit, ensuring that even if you have the policies right, that data is, gets to the destination in the same way without alteration. Another aspect we also looked at is a concept called zero knowledge proofs, which ensures that you can confirm that you have data without sharing the actual data, which is useful in different cases. For example, when you're sharing data on pandemics or public health data, you don't confirm that there is corona without having to reveal your identity as a person who is sharing this as a public health researcher. Then the last bit was the different domains that this would make sense. And we looked at public health, agriculture, which goes with climate for early warning systems, education, disaster management, because this is for the global majority. And the last one is on urban planning. So we know the global majority requires lots of data in urban planning, and researchers have the data, and the governments at times would want to utilize this data. So that's a key domain. So that was all from the second group. Thank you.
Thank you, group, data sharing group. We'll go to group 3 that focus on AI talent coordination.
So good afternoon. So this is William again from AI Singapore. I think we had a very, very dynamic discussion related to the talent development framework. I think so dynamic to the point that I don't think I managed to capture all of it. In fact, I have my partner, Tulu, who will sort of like complement some of the things that we missed out. So apologies if it is a little bit messy. We're gonna put this into a proper document that we will improve together as a team. So I think we started with the questions of what are some of the gaps that people observe in the various regions when it comes to talent development. I think there's quite a lot of points here, and many of them you probably can relate, right? There is this story of people, students, when they go out of the school or graduate from the university, they see gaps in the relevance of what they have learned with the actual ability of them contributing to the industry world, right? So there is that gap, and it's sort of like exacerbated by the fact that the world of AI is moving really, really rapidly, right? I think there's always new model every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, right? That's create a lot of problem for both the students, but even more for the teachers themselves, right? How do they keep up with all these things? There's also a little bit of discussion about these gaps where you observe, like in the world of software engineering, right? AI is actually very, very capable of doing some of the basic development stuff, right? Where people can really add value is at the higher level, at the system level, where you think about a solution, you think about scalability and so on. But to get to that level where you can value add, typically programmers need to spend some time, honing their skills as junior programmers. But nobody's hiring junior programmers right now, so the pipeline is broken, and that creates a little bit of problem in our industry. Right? So this is one of the gaps that was highlighted as well. There's a question on we can come up with all kinds of schemes, but then the reality is that infrastructure to train the talent is actually not there, right? So this is an area where we thought, hey, we are South-South collaborators here. I think you have to think a little bit broader beyond individual region. I think there are some places where we can consolidate our resources together, probably help a little bit in this infrastructure. Right? So those are some of the gaps. And then from there, we sort of like think a little bit about the potential solutions. And here we kind of transition into the key discussion prompts. And the first one is really, which kind of form the solutions to some of the gaps, right? How can research labs and universities produce applied practitioners, right? So the truth is that we are thinking that in the world of AI right now, where knowledge is so dynamic, perhaps we need to be very radical. We need to kind of go at least 50% static curriculum, probably gets updated once in a while, and then 50% total industry attachments, where problems are being solved, following the actual need of the industry itself. Right? So probably that's what we need to think. And I think there are two benefits of this, right, at least. One of them is they train the students not to kind of think about grades. They force the students to think about ROI, what market really wants. And that's sort of like tagged to the trend of AI itself. More or less, you have to follow the AI. And then that's the second benefit itself, right? Because encoded knowledge usually, is quite difficult. Curriculum is quite difficult for you to keep updating it. But practical knowledge, through internship and so on, will always be dynamically updated, following the whatever tech stack, whatever new models that's been going to be released, every once in a while, right? So I think that solves a little bit of issue, right? And I think from there on, we also think that everybody needs to think about ROI. Maybe we are already entering into the world where everybody needs to be an entrepreneur. Everybody needs to kind of think in a startup mode, right? And we also highlight one phenomena that's quite interesting, that we notice that smart people, smart students, they get admitted into some of the best universities that they apply for, yet they decide not to take it, right? They go and basically build their own startup or join a big startup, right? It seems like they don't see the value in universities anymore. So I think from there, we as a group can come to a conclusion that actually nowadays the recipe to build talent is in a flux. It's not the conventional way, typical pipeline. You go to secondary, tertiary, and then and so on, right? I think it's good for us with the reality that we face every day in the Global South. We should probably consolidate all our knowledge, all our experience, how many different paths people are following right now, and at least share with each other. Right? Share with each other. We create a living document, and I think this is probably one of the most actionable things from our discussion. And we will create these living documents that consolidate some of the different ways people approach talent development in our region in this modern world of AI. Right? There's also one point that was brought up. This is the importance, I think, highlighting against the importance of language accessibility. Right? So I think for us to allow that our solution, whatever program that we build to be inclusive, right? We have to think about making the curriculum accessible, in the local languages. So that's important. The second prompt that we cover was a little bit on the talent retention itself. The reality is that you have very, very good people, and then they're going to leave. They're going to join some of the big tech in the world. There's this mobility. We thought that is actually not a bad idea. Right? We should think of talent as a pipeline in the ecosystem. Right? If people get a better job joining a big one, why not? We encourage them, right? Of course, if they join competitors, it's a different story. But if they join like Google or all the big labs in the world, we should support them. What we need to do is probably we need to create a system where there's a constant flow of pipeline, talent pipeline, right? If somebody's going out, there's a new one replacing it, right? So we don't feel like we kind of in the shortage of talent, right? How to build that system is something that probably we kind of try to flesh out a little bit more in our document. And then the last bit is actually related to the observation that my colleague Tulu mentioned, that in some situations, people has no mobility. They can only move from one company to another if they're already in a company. If they're fresh grad, nobody's gonna accept them, right? And then this sort of like remind me of one of the programs that we did in Singapore, the apprenticeship program, right? Where we knew at that point that there were so many mid-career switcher wannabe, want to join AI industry. They finish their Coursera, they finish their Udemy, they're very, very good at it, but never get into the AI industry itself, because usually the job requirement is that you need to have some kind of a real AI projects that you put in your CVs, right? So I think what we did in Singapore is that we create an opportunity for these people, right? We realized that actually, if they need a project, we in the government, we have so many things, so many problems that needs to be solved using AI. Why don't we take all these people, right, put them into real projects, right, while they are, you know, and then basically helping us solve the problem, and then suddenly they can put in their CV, I have one real AI project, and then in a way we help them to enter into the system. There's really a example of how government, you know, and the industry and the academia work together to help all these people. And I think we want to, you know, think a little bit more on how we can make it a little bit more applicable in some of the regions beyond Singapore, right? So this is, you know, as I said, a little bit messy right now. We have discussed many different items. Somebody took note of that, and you know, what we're going to do is that we're going to structure it better and then flesh out a little bit more details that make it applicable more generally to our region. Tulu, can I invite you? I think you probably have some additional points to make. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So good evening, everyone. My name is Tolu Lokpe Olowolaju, and I work with the Africa Hub for Innovation and Development, Abuja, Nigeria. So still on the AI ecosystem, AI talent ecosystem, whereby the focus was more on how you can build, how you can scale, and how you can, you know, connect AI ecosystem across, you know, global South. Because I was discussing in my group that the problem is not just that we need more of AI engineers, we need more of machine learning engineers, practitioners, or researchers. The deep problem is that the deepest problem is that fragmentation. Talent exists, yeah, fine, talent exists, but there are fragmentation. How can we move from fragmentation to federation? How can we move from silos or being isolated in one part to being, you know, combined or being joined and being partnered with an organization in some aspects? So we discussed about different barriers. We discussed about different challenges in which people different. Thank God, in my group, we have people that come from different countries, so they could share their own experience as well. We discussed about the learning structures and barrier. And in the learning structure, we noticed that, okay, let me just give an illustration whereby, you know, you just give someone an idea of a project, and what that person will do is that you just go straight to either VS Code or maybe Python to just, you know, start coding the project immediately without a system design, without the model architecture, without any form of concept note for that. So we discussed about that while doing that, you are just, you know, because there's some kind of requirement your model needs to contain if you are building an intelligent system. If you are building an intelligent system, you need to consider the scalability, you need to consider the reproducibility, you need to consider the adaptability, and, you know, many other things. Unless if you want to just build, you know, if you just want to build a model-centric, you know, if you want to make your model to just stay in in your Jupyter notebook or in your GitHub, just as moving, you know, because there's difference between moving from model-centric to system-centric. You are moving from from your model being in a GitHub to being a production model. So those are the things we discussed, that for you to build a scalable model, a production model, there are stages to this thing. So you are not just building something that, you know, many people will not use. You are building something that is scalable. So there's ideation part, there's implementation part, there's analysis part, and there's also, you know, the deployment and the maintenance part of it. So all these things are what we consider. Also, another thing we considered during our session was the alignment of AI curricula with real industry and public sectors. So I gave an instance whereby in most of the schools, let's say universities, for example, in Nigeria, whereby, you know, students are not taught about, you know, how they can use AI. They're just, you know, they just focus more on the theory part. Even the students that are being taught about, you know, how they can be used, how they can use AI or computer science, they just make sure that they focus more on the theory aspect rather than the practical aspect. Yeah, it happens, I don't know, maybe it's everywhere, maybe it's every country, but it happens where in Nigeria, whereby they just focus main on the theoretical part. And this has, this has an effect in the industry, whereby, we don't want to recruit people that are just acquiring certificates alone. Many people just acquire certificates, let's say Coursera would then link the certificate, but the practical, the real knowledge, the real industry is not there. Yeah. So just for instance, when I wanted to, when I wanted to do my interview in my organization, I was being asked that have I ever worked on maybe a real life project before, a real world project. I said no, because okay. I first said yes, and the CEO was like, "Oh, have you trained a model that people are using? It has been tested and being maintained by people at once." So and I said, "No, there's difference between building your own project at once and building a real life project." So there are differences between that part. We also discussed about the infrastructure part, which is very important. I think this is everywhere, because one thing about this infrastructure part is that many people don't, if there are not much infrastructure for a particular project, the project funding, every other thing is going to collapse and it's not going to be scalable at the end. So we also discussed about, okay, I said this, that skills more on practical rather than, skills more on theory rather than practical. Yeah, it happens everywhere. So we'll focus more on model metrics rather than, solving complex human challenges. Okay, in this instance now, that is, many people, they don't focus more on the, on the user's problem. They just believe that, oh, let's do something that can, let's just do something, deploy it, and let's just have it that, oh, we built something that is working. They don't really focus on the user problem. They don't really focus that, oh, can this thing be generalized in this place? And this, I made an illustration whereby we built a solution in my organization whereby we call the solution tuberculosis chatbot, whereby you can converse with the solution and in any language, just basically Nigerian languages, Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, and English. So it can respond to you in that with your accent, with the accent you inputted to it. So it's just mainly retrieval augmented generation or chatbot that is a knowledge-based chatbot that knows everything about tuberculosis. Ask anything about tuberculosis, it will respond to you. So those are the things we discussed. And lastly, we said something about data scarcity. Data scarcity, I think those are one of the problems whereby those are one of the problems people face nowadays. Data scarcity, where people will not see, because I was stating in my group that there are some kind of data you can generate. There are some secondary data you can generate, and there are some kind of data you cannot, but look for the original data, look for the primary data. So those are the things we discussed during my session, and we are also looking to structure everything well and come with a better, update. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think we'll go to our next group presentation, that is compute and infrastructure coordination. I don't know who is presenting from. Okay.
Hello, everyone. I'm David Chen from Capsule. I'm the co-founder and CEO. Just a quick introduction. Capsule is a health data aggregator operating across Africa. And our topic on compute and infrastructure, as well as data, was very engaging. And I'll cover and recap this conversation in 4 main areas. The first, I'll cover a bit of context as to where Africa is today and where it needs to go. The second, I'll focus on what needs to be done today to improve the likelihood and the quality of compute capacity within Africa. I will then make recommendations on what to do next. So I'd like to start off with a very simple analogy. I like to say that AI is the engine of the future, the engine of our economies. But I also like to ask, where does that engine live? It lives on servers, in data centers. And those data centers need a few key things to exist. One of the most important things is energy. And that is what many people consider when considering whether or not Africa has the ability to have data center capacity. But also, there are a number of other things that are important and needed to consider. The first is the uptime that the power is able to keep. How consistent is that power? The second is the country in which that data is hosted. How does it manage dispute resolution? How does it manage capital controls? And how does it have the talent to maintain those systems? And those four things are the things in combination that decide whether or not a particular country or area is worth investing into when it comes to building compute capacity. So where is Africa today? Currently, in terms of energy production for compute capacity, it is at 0.7 gigawatts, which is less than half of what the target was. Today, there is a 1.5 gigawatt gap, which will take $25 billion to close. And that $25 billion is either going to come from domestic investors or from international investors. So the way you address that gap is to think like an investor and to create a story, to create a narrative, to create a report that can talk about the return on investment that you're likely going to see if you make those investments. So the things that are needed to make the compute capacity more appealing within Africa is the development of local talent, of local capacity when it comes to having dispute resolution, to come up with the relevant levels of capital policies or reducing capital control so that those investors can receive the returns that they are expecting, and also report on things such as the uptime of the infrastructure which is being developed so that you can give full confidence to those investors that the customers and the users of that compute can get what they have been paying for. So how do you create the right incentives to invest into capacity within Africa? The first thing is to create a model where you incentivize local use of the data centers, because every piece of regulation, every piece of requirements that are added to creating these data centers add incremental costs to the compute which needs to be passed on to the end user. And right now, there is an unfortunate reality that the number of requirements that are being made of these data centers increases the cost so that many data centers within Africa are not cost competitive when compared to data centers hosted outside of the continent. So there needs to be a few ways of resolving that. The first one is is a policy recommendation, is to reduce, if not eliminate, some of the importing tariffs when it comes to actually getting that compute. If you're adding cost in to just get the servers and the computers into your country, that will need to be passed on to the end users, and you cannot avoid those costs. When you compare that to countries like the US or like in Europe, where the import duties are much lower, they can get that compute at a much cheaper cost, and therefore the running costs are much lower for the user, which would incentivize the users within Africa to start using those cheaper alternatives. So the first and clearest recommendation we can make is to reduce, if not eliminate, all import tariffs when it comes to getting the GPU and the compute capacity into the country. The second is to reduce and, if not eliminate, many of the local requirements that are had when it comes to the carbon implications of the data centers that they are building up, because those again have incremental costs that are being added to the cost of the data center, which need to be passed on to the users. So in our discussion, we very much focus on the unit economics and the cost of things, because if you are going to attract that $25 billion shortfall from international investors, you need to create an environment where you have a clear return on that capital, return on that investment. So I will wrap up in saying that we do believe, and we are very confident and bullish on the potential of Africa to have the compute capacity within the continent, but barriers that add friction to using local compute need to be addressed to make it more competitive when it comes to the global standard. Thank you.
Thank you for that summarized presentation. We'll have our next group, which is Research and Innovation Pathway, presenting their discussion points.
Okay, research and innovation pathways, we discussed how enabling use case diffusion can happen through research networks. So we realized that many research networks have successfully developed pilots, but struggle to move from pilot to scale. And the challenge is not lack of experimentation or lack of innovation, but rather being able to transition from research to pilot, and then to mainstream adoption, and then further on to scale. So some of the key insights that we discussed is co-creation must begin at the earliest stage. So when you're developing your research questions, that's where co-creation should happen, so that you're able to develop your problem framing, and also you're able to co-design your solution. Validation is also important and should start again at the outset, so that way you ensure clarity on the business case and any additional funding requirements that you might opt for. Learning circles and structured forums are also really important because they help us to document successes, failures, insights, and this can then lead to accelerated shared learning. We also discussed mentorship and mentorship programs, as well as incubation hubs that can support researchers in transforming their ideas into market-ready products. We looked at research hubs that should clearly define who is co-creating. So we analyzed the triple helix, which is academia, industry, government, and also included communities and funders. Another key question that we sought to answer is a question on localization and alignment with lived realities. So a lot of these solutions that we see in the market are not, in many cases, not localized. So some of the key considerations that we looked at was developing research networks that are embedded within broader ecosystems, multidisciplinary collaboration, and they need to have social scientists. So you remember the panel earlier, that social science plays a very important role in development of these tools. So it should cut across technical, social, economic, policy, all these different areas should come together. So we also felt that data may be available. We had a case where data has been collected to actually map out satellite imagery specifically for mining, but the data is available. However, insights on what to do with that data is where the gap is, including actionable interventions. Also, we looked at two interesting cases of how a research project could actually be converted into a proof of concept or a validated use case. And the first one was from one of our group members who has developed a load balancing chatbot platform and has built this, basically a hack going around API restrictions. And then in South Africa, there was a case of a social media mining tool that has used distributed infrastructure, small servers across multiple machines, including laptops, to ensure service continuity for some data that they had to collect on a continuous basis. So we also saw that research and talent are linked, and we need to strengthen research ecosystems. We need to build incubation hubs that bring in innovators, brings in researchers, people who are either doing their research via master's or PhD, as well as innovators. There's an interesting one where we looked at intellectual crowdsourcing via digital platforms. So if you have a problem to solve or a research question to solve, you can actually crowdsource that from an intellectual perspective through digital platforms. We also looked at developer collaboration through shared repositories and the importance of having open code components to encourage co-creation. So other strategies that we agreed upon was to develop compressed and fine-tuned small language models that are tailored to specific contextual problems. That is one of the clearest way to move from theoretical research into usable tools and use cases. There's also a need to conduct targeted data collection that's aligned with the defined context, and we should not have only synthetic data that at times does not represent the real picture on ground. So there's a need to have targeted data collection and using synthetic data sets cautiously and only when grounded in authentic baseline data sets. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Omicho. And lastly, our group that focused on use case-driven AI ecosystem development, Dr. Mwigusa will be presenting.
Thank you. So our breakout session was about use case-driven AI ecosystem development framework. And the focus was on which high impact AI use cases can address shared development challenges across the Global South and what ecosystem conditions are needed to scale them through South-South collaboration. So on the point that we discussed, first of all, we need to create AI solutions that solve local problems in a sense of creating solutions which, first of all, we have to understand the local challenges that we are facing and then come up with solutions that will address those solutions. But we have to develop solutions which use mobile devices in order to access them, but they need also to be offline in a sense that they should be able to store data locally. But these tools, again, they have to use local languages in order for the community to be able to understand in their particular languages that they are speaking. And the consideration, these ones, they'll be able to solve the local solutions, but also the user interface should be friendly when we are developing these kind of solutions. But they should also provide a feedback mechanism in terms of when you are using these kind of solutions, then those users should be able also to provide the feedback towards the usage of those particular solutions. And this will eventually enable the update of when you are doing the upgrade of the solutions, because technology is growing every now and then. So the AI tools should be a digital public good designed to benefit the society as well. And the other question was how should we encourage experimentation? So this one should be by making use of national sandboxes in order to test our AI use cases. That now we have the sandboxes whereby innovators can be able to test their solutions before now bringing them to market. That then now you are very much sure that it can solve the community. So this is before implementation. And we have to encourage the pilot model. The other thing we talked about establishing, because we have seen that we have a case of other countries now have embedded these AI-based courses from the law learning, the case of China. But for our case, since it is a process now to review these policies and embed AI programs maybe in our curriculums, then what we have to do is maybe establishing some AI clubs in primary schools from the low level to establish these AI clubs in order to provide AI literacy. But also with the South-South collaboration, here we talked about using federated models in terms of having continental or regional blocks, in terms of maybe we have AI compute center, maybe in the eastern part of the continent. Maybe also we have the data disaster recovery sites on the other part. Or we have the shared, but we should also have the shared health, finance, etc. platforms that we can all be able to access and make use of them whenever need be. But also for the talent and the deployment, we can make use of exchange of curricula in terms of now taking what is on the other country to another country and adopting it. We also talked about the use of cross-border AI sandboxes, also is important for that matter. Yeah, we need to have AI competition in national, but regional and continental level as well. And this as well would be very, very helpful. So yeah, this is it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, everyone, for your contribution. And as Shiko mentioned in the morning, we already have the first draft of the frameworks. So all these insights that we have gathered here will be incorporated into our frameworks. And tomorrow during the South-South workshop, these ideas will be shared to everyone just to see the work that we have done. We appreciate you for being with us until now. And lastly, now to close our session, I will ask Joshua just to come and provide the closing remarks. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for holding fort for this long. We truly, truly appreciate you have really held it. You know, Chinua Achebe once wrote that until the lion learns to write the story, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. And here we are writing our own stories. Here we are trying to define what the global majority needs are and what we need to get there. So thank you. You are our heroes for today. I want to tell you a little story. So there's an organization called Xerox PAC, which was formed around 1970 by Xerox Corporation. So Xerox PAC was told, you go there and develop products, think, come up with ideas. Out of that Xerox PAC, we have the mouse, we have the Ethernet, we have so many applications that later Microsoft and Apple took up. But then it was because of a guy, some guys went aside to just think, to just ideate. And that's what we are doing right here. We are going to, we pray that much good will come out of it, and posterity will thank us that these are people who met and framed what global majority needs are. We are calling ourselves global majority, no longer Global South, because we truly are the majority. So thank you. You are our chief guest. We thank you, and we are going to clap for each other through Mosquito Club. Do you guys know what Mosquito Club is? So when the white man came to Africa, they were amazed why we were not falling sick of malaria. Apparently it's because when a mosquito came, we went for it, we caught it, and we smashed it. So that's how we are going to clap for each other today. So I'm going to illustrate. Mosquito, catch it, Smash it. Great. So now this is you guys clapping for each other for holding fort for so long. Mosquito, mosquito, mosquitoes. Catch it. Smash it. Thank you, guys. There is tea there. Please grab a coffee. And we need a group photo. So we should have a group photo here. And then after that, we are going to grab coffee there. So please, guys, please come for group photo. And thank you a lot for holding photo now. Here. Yeah.
As the photo expands, you just keep taking the photo. What, tired? Yeah, there's a lot of talking happening. Yeah, that shows you how tired people are.